Excellent.
Hello, please say hello.
Hey, hello everyone. Looking forward for a great chapter. Thank you, Sil.
Okay, so we're going to talk about our awesomely over-communicated society. I really like this chapter. David and I were talking about it before we got on the call today. So he brought some interesting points for us to look at, some things that I haven't looked at before. So I'm really excited to get to talk to you guys about this today. So first, David and I would just like to start off and check in with you guys. Tracy, it's so good to have you on the call. It's been forever since I've seen you. And Alexi, it's wonderful to have your new face on this call. And Juan and Cora and Al, it's always great to see you. So thank you for being here. So just want to check in and see if anybody has something good that's happened to you this week, a win that's happened that you would like to share with us, because you know we like to celebrate. So does anyone have anything a win you'd like to share? And if not, we will check in at the end of the call again.
I'll share my win.
Okay, Corey, yes.
I was giving others opportunities to share their wins, but
Okay.
if nobody's going to go, I'll share mine. So I had a nice meeting today about a potential money-making opportunity in a new area of energy and green energy and saving energy. So it went well. So, you know, I'm on a nice little run of doing my sales calls and doing my best to put my life force particles and use my my life force particles to the best of my ability, and also taking part in a clean slate course, which is great. And I finished a session with my co-processor Amber earlier today, so that was good. So yeah, just getting into the clean slate and learning more about it.
Thank you very much for sharing, Corey.
Well done.
Anybody else have a win you want to share before we talk about our society and what's happening with all these cell phones and social media and gunk? Okay, so if not, I just want to hear from you, David. I would love for you to share with us some of your thoughts about some of the points you talked to me about on communication, and then how that relates to how the society is affected with all the ways that we are getting stimulated by the devices.
Yeah, so is it okay if I read Alan's definition of communication first?
Yeah, and you want to put it on the board, if you could show that on the screen for everyone, so everyone's got that definition.
Camilla, do you have that?
There we go.
All right, very good. So can everyone see that? That's my dog barking. All right. Okay.
You're talking about communication. They must have picked up on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so communication, the noun. So one, the action of propelling an idea or thing from an original point across a space to an arrival point, with the purpose of bringing into being at the arrival point a comprehension of which was propelled from the original point. 2, to make known, impart. 3, to have an interchange of ideas. 4, to express oneself in such a way that one is readily and clearly understood. So that's how to upgrade your life and relationships, chapter 4. The single most important skills for creating great futures, great opportunities, great relationships, and great friends. The tool for directing positive life force particles to produce what you want out of life. The Zones of Life book. So I think that kind of sets the stage a little bit, because what I wanted to talk about was the ability to communicate in today's environment. And I don't know if any of you have seen, there's a documentary called The Social Dilemma. And it is have you seen it?
Yeah, thumbs up.
Corey, you seem like you've seen it.
I haven't seen it either.
Yeah.
After talking to David, I'm going to watch it. Go ahead, David. Yeah.
So anyway, as you know, Corey, and whoever else has seen it, this is a documentary put together, and they interview a whole host of people that sort of develop these algorithms in the social media platforms, and are people that are pretty high up in these companies. And it's very interesting to listen to them and how and what they do and how they turn off their notifications. They don't allow their children to have any cell phones, right? And they eliminate these platforms from their daily lives because they know what it does and how much time and energy it sucks out of them and their families. And so they tell their friends, don't download the app, right? So that is a very telling sort of tale that tells me, and I know from personal experience, right, that if you're on these devices and on these apps, it sucks your energy and it reduces your productivity and it takes time out of your day. So I think cell phones, social media, and even emails, right? So I get a lot done if I only check my emails at the end of the day, right? Because I'm doing what I want to do, not what other people want me to do. So for me, that's a technique that I use to be productive in my day. And so the other part of today's society that I think of when I think of social media and the social dilemma and the lack of ability to communicate with one another is what the impact of COVID has on our community and us. And the way they tell us to wear face masks is basically screening our expression when we communicate, which is interesting, right? Because the whole idea of separation, 6 feet, don't shake hands, don't hug, don't do any of this stuff, which is vital to building relationships and vital to communication. So I have a little story, if I have some time, Seal, if I can just tell a little story about what happened to me yesterday. We busy launching, so we're busy launching a new market for our magazine, and I went up to spend the day with the sales rep that's launching it for us. And we saw probably about 15 different businesses. And the second business we walked into had been preempted, really. So we had a set time to meet this person. And we sat down, we started talking. For the first half an hour, we just talked about what he wanted to talk about, which was actually was politics, right? So we talked about his views on politics for half an hour, without masks, right? So we were having a great old time, and we ended up signing a 10-month deal that is worth $56,000. So a big win, but we would never have been able to do that if we just called him or emailed him. Mm-hmm. So that personal interaction, that one-on-one in his office with him in a relaxed frame of mind, built trust and built a relationship, and he wanted to buy from us. So I think that, to me, tells a big story in actually sort of going out and meeting people, shaking hands, right? Fist pumps are okay, but for generations and centuries, we've shaken hands. And if you have to wash your hand, that's fine, right? But it's that contact and that communication that is vital to society. And yeah, just removing all the external distractions and really focusing on communicating, looking people in the eye, talking to them, and being open, right, is key. So that the definition of communication, this part about readily, so number 4, to express oneself in such a way that one is readily and clearly understood, right? So that the person that's receiving the communication has a good comprehension of what you're conveying. So, and then the other part of yesterday, we went into someone's building and they had all the doors closed because of COVID, because there's regulations. You're not allowed so many people in your building, right? So we found a door that was open and we went in anyway. And this lady was sitting up in an office upstairs and we shouted up to her and she came down and at the end of the conversation, she was so grateful for us coming in there and chatting to her because she had a great time and she hadn't spoken to anyone probably all week. So, you know, she was very grateful for that. But that's, you know, and then the result of that interaction, she wasn't a direct client or a direct prospect for us, but she knows a ton of contractors that may be interested in working with us. So she's now a proponent of ours, and she's going to go and push our product. And that was because we didn't take no for an answer, right? So we broke through the barrier. So anyway, yeah, that's a little bit about today's society. And then do you want me to talk about my children, Seal?
Yeah, thank you, David, so much for that. Yeah, I want to go into the audience just for a second before we move to the children. I love that topic. So yes, Al, and then I'd like to hear from anyone else that has a comment about this chapter. So yes, we'll start with you, Al.
Okay, thank you, Seal. David, I'm just curious, when you were listening to the guy's politics, if you were duplicating what he said and if you felt like you were duplicating, I'd like to hear a little more about that, you know, whenever it's a good time.
Right on. Yeah, so, you know, we all have different views, right? And we were just mainly listening to what he was saying. And we would have, I actually had a story about when I grew up. I was born in Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe. And we had to leave in a military convoy to go down to Cape Town. And we got left behind in the military convoy because our vehicle was too slow. And so it was a very dangerous trip for us, but obviously we survived because I'm here. And so my story tied into what he was saying a little bit. And he enjoyed the story. And so, you know, a personal story that relates is really very powerful, especially in sales, right? Stories always sell. So yeah, I think, yeah, we were listening and duplicating a little bit. But I sort of turned it around into a life story, which I think you really enjoyed. But great question. Thanks, Al. Yeah, Corey.
Yeah, David, I like the story you just told because I was able to find a company yesterday and find a telephone number and just make a telephone
Yeah.
call. And then we had a nice chat. And he said, "You want to come down and have a meet?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Bring some Jaffa Cake biscuits." And I said, "Okay." So I bought some Jaffa Cake biscuits and we met and then we had a chat with the team and it was just nice. It was good. They
Fantastic.
spoke, I spoke, and obviously there was the mask signs and this, that, and the other, but being able to get in communication, be able to just dial the number, speak to someone, arrange a meeting, and have a meeting. It was just beautiful rather than having to go through emails and send out CVs. It was just so easy, so natural. They've got a problem, I've got a problem. Let's see how we can help each other. I was like, yay.
Fantastic. That shows tremendous skill because you had to break through a barrier, right? And you had to put yourself out there. You had to generate the energy to make it happen. And that energy was obviously felt when you first communicated and you were on the phone or, and so that takes a tremendous amount of skill. Maybe you don't realize what you did, but you did an incredible thing, not just for yourself, but for the other people, right? So very well done, Corey.
Yeah, lots of practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a tremendous ability to have. So fantastic. Well done.
Thank you. So
Anybody else?
anybody else have a comment? Yes, hello.
Hi guys, how are you? Great to see you. I think that this chapter is key. Well, all the chapters in the book are incredibly important, but this subject about communication in these times, I think, is something that we better break down in different parts and try to know that we're in the middle, like of a tsunami, and we are in the middle of the wave, and we really don't know what is going to happen next, because there are many things that I've been looking for many years. And coming from what Alan is saying in the book, in this chapter, and talking about that era of marketing and big promotion, big companies fighting for the attention of consumers, is what is, it was like that a few years ago. But today, after this digital technology has been like everywhere, the change is huge, because now that is times thousand times more. And the use of these big companies of that technology, how some people are using these changes and not for good. And that is what Social Dilemma, that documentary, puts there very, very clearly. And I recommend watching it. I've watched it twice because it's so bad what is happening that you really need to make a pause and think and say, wait a minute, what is really happening here? Because one thing is fighting for your attention, and another thing is influencing you about thinking how you're going to think, how you're going to react without you knowing that I am doing that to you.
Yeah.
But that is just the second part, because then is what people, regular people, is doing with that. Okay, so we have an incredible piece of technology here that we humans are using for social media mostly. It's like embarrassing. So it's like so planet Earth, these inhabitants there are using an amazing piece of technology, mostly for social media. So it's just insane. But then this goes to a normalization on now how it's okay to communicate. And that for me is shocking, because now a very key element of communication, that is the acknowledgement, is almost missing. Everybody's writing texts and WhatsApp and this and that, but there is not an acknowledgement that, yeah, I heard what you said. I understood. I duplicate what you said. I didn't get it. I didn't like it, or I agree. Whatever is not happening. It's normal not to respond to any communication, not to acknowledge, and if we add that to the pandemic, then it's like the worst possible scenario, because now I'm covered and I can't, if I smile to you, to something that you say, that's an acknowledgement. If I nod, if I open my eyes, something, or a shake hand or something, and now we don't have that. So if we add all these elements, I think we are in a very, very, very bad moment as a society. So we, people that we care about these things, we better know that we are in this weird place, because if not, it's very confusing, and it can put you looking to different places that maybe the problem is not there. It's like it's many elements, many changes at the same time happening very fast. So the confusion can be very big. So, well, it's great to be able to say this to someone because if not, I'm usually the crazy one in social gatherings. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan.
Very good one. Very good.
So, with that, what we're going to do, we briefly talked about this. I think we should do a little bit of a challenge this week, call it a challenge. So if you could just do one less text or one less email and just reach out, take a look and say, okay, maybe just pick up the phone and call that person. And even if you leave a voicemail, I mean, that's still that human touch, and there's a lot that comes across in a voicemail. So even if you don't get the person, still pick up the phone and ring and try to connect. Just give yourself just a little bit more this week than you did the last week. Is that good? Good.
Very good.
Even if it's just a voice note, you know what I mean? It's like, I've had people tell me before, can you just leave me a voicemail? I don't mean that bragging, but because I leave an upbeat voicemail and I'm like, okay, I didn't really know it meant that much. But, people tell you that, right? They just want to hear a voice. They want that connection. So that's our challenge for this week. And I would love to, before we end today, I would love to briefly touch on the kids because I have grandchildren myself. I'm just so thankful I'm not raising kids at this moment in time because of just all the social media and the phones, and I see the fights with the parents, and I have my assistant, she has a teenager, and I'm like, I don't know how you deal with this. They're playing games. So David and I were talking about that, and I asked him, what do you do with your kids? How do you deal with this? Just simple stuff. And then one of the things I noticed that, and I'm sure you've all seen it, it really changes their personality. Man, when you take away that input and that social media and the phone and all that, their personality shifts. They actually become a lot nicer and a lot work with and friendlier when they go through withdrawal symptoms, almost like a drug is what I've noticed. But David, just share quickly a couple of things that you do with your kids and what you've noticed.
Yeah, thanks, Sil. So you're right. It does, and they designed to produce endomorphins, and when you get a notification and it bings, you sort of get an elated feeling, and that feeling is addictive, right? And it's designed to be like that. But yeah, my kids are still young. They're 6 and a half, going on 7, right? So, this week I had to change the passcode on my phone because they got the passcode. They knew it, and they would take my phone, and then on Monday, they took my phone and in the car with them, and I wasn't taking them to school. My wife was, so I lost my phone for a while because they were playing on it. But yeah, I think there's certain things you can do to sort of mitigate or eliminate some of the things they watch on YouTube, on TV, on your phone. But yeah, just do, I'm not going to buy my kids cell phones or video games or everything else. So it starts with the parent, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't give them access, they might go to a friend's house and play, which is okay. It's not going to kill them, right? So, and every now and again, if they want to watch take a video, I mean, they are very good at these devices. I mean, they can do more on this thing than I can. But you have to be able to limit that exposure. And I just feel like when they don't have the device, they're playing, they're outside riding their bikes, they're down in the creek, they're doing stuff little kids should be doing, kicking a ball, running around, getting exercise, getting blood to the brain. When they're sitting inside on a device, they typically end up fighting because one wants it, the other one doesn't have it, and it's just, it's so addictive. If you let them have it, that's all they want. And it's very scary. So yeah, and then of course I have friends that have teenagers, etc. And their communication is absolutely terrible. It's absolutely shocking. And they're at a gathering and they don't look up from a screen. They all they want to do is text with their friends. They're not even talking to them, like you said, Juan. They're texting them, and it's incredibly, I don't know, it's rude, right? I find it offensive. But that's the society today. That's who these kids are. So I just think it's so important to think out the box. These guys that, when you watch the Social Dilemma documentary, these guys take all phones away from their children and their families, and they stop any notifications coming through on their phones and on their emails. They just stop the notifications. And I think it's a very important thing, because if you allow those notifications to distract you all day long, you're not going to be productive at all. But Juan, you are very correct in saying that this device is an incredibly productive device. You can do an incredible amount of work on this thing, and there's a lot of knowledge that you can access very quickly if you use it correctly and not for social media.
Thank
So
you, David.
I'm a big proponent against social media, if you hadn't have realized already.
Thank you, David. So I just want to check in with you guys and see, because I want to honor the time. We say 30 minutes. So I want to leave you with a really good positive viewpoint of what kind of communication we want. So Camilo, can you put that last slide up that says live, pleasant, live, pleasant, loving communication. And with that, I will just share one quick thing. Back in the 60s, Alan was hired to go in and work with a bunch of stockbrokers. And they actually hired him to come in the 60s to teach these stockbrokers how to communicate. There were 635 companies in the state. And this was the worst office of all. And so he went in and was totally befuddled after working with them one day and said they were so far down the zones, they didn't even know where up was. But basically he sketched out the zones, went in the next day, showed them where they were in the area of communication and how far down they were and what they needed to do to get up to the green zone to communicate positively. And he took them from being the worst in the whole entire United States all the way up to the top. And it was all around being able to communicate effectively, presently, pleasantly, and presently. So with that, I would just love to wish you all a green zone and gold zone week. And just thank you so much for dialing in. It was an honor to be on the phone call with you, and it's so great to see these new faces and great to see some of the older faces, not in age, but just haven't connected with in a while, like Tracy. We'll never talk about age. So thank you so much, and we hope to see you next week. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Sil. Thanks a lot, David, everybody. Have a good
Thank
week.
you so much.
That's Corey.
Thank
Nice meeting
you.
you.
Bye bye.